every game is so huge. Yes, I think in ways that helps you by the time you get to the playoffs because you've been in that mode for such a long time. But also, like, there's only a certain amount of time you can keep that up before you just start to fall apart out there. Like, that's not – I do think there's value in having rest. And we talked about this – I mean, we've talked about it 1,000 times. There is no formula that just guarantees success going in the playoffs. Like, I remember having a discussion with Porth about Tampa Bay heading in the playoffs. They were sputtering down the stretch. Stamkos and Kucherov were out. They just looked like they were kind of going through the motions out there. And Porth was like, this team is going to be out in the first round. I'm like, I don't know about that. And here they are. They disposed of Florida relatively easily. Florida made a couple of games out of it, but Tampa Bay dominated that series. And here they are. They're up 2-0 going back home against Carolina. Like, they look like every bit of the Stanley Cup champions that they were last year. Yeah. There's no formula to it, but I can promise you don't want to spend every year just living on the edge and having to fight and scratch your way in as the final team in the playoffs. It's not a good formula.
Actually, I like the formula, though, of keeping your superstar player out and then being able to load up on the cap and then bringing him in.
Well, maybe they should try that.
And then all of a sudden you're just, ridiculous, look like a bunch of Marvel superheroes out there. I mean, I think that's a good plan. So if you can do that in this league, do that.
Boy, that caused a storm a couple weeks ago with Kucherov coming back in. That was something.
Yeah. Hey, he's good. He's okay.
Magically.
Gosh, amazing.
He's been skating for 6 weeks.
He's all right. You got to take your time with these injuries. You got to be careful.
When we come back, we'll continue the discussion on the Nashville Predators, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode, live from the wholesaling studios, powered by RumbleOn.com, here on ESPN 1025, The Game. Welcome back in. Hour number 2 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. It's been a heck of a morning so far. What day is it, Joe?
It's a weird week, too.
It's a weird week. That's
it's
true.
a Thursday morning, and my shorts are still wet.
Yes, they are. We've had water spills, power outages, everything and the like today.
This
happened last week, and I think it was the result of somebody driving into a pole. I guess someone else hit a pole. That's my question. Like, we had, within a week's time, 2 electric poles get run into. That seems unlikely.
That's a good question. Meanwhile, one of my keyboards is now hitting the Z button, and I can't stop it. What in the world is happening right now?
I don't know.
Oh, boy.
How is it only Thursday?
What a start.
I'm also hearing a weird echo. What is happening right now?
Because your volume's on your computer.
I can't stop it because I can't work my computer. Oh, my gosh.
I wish somebody had a camera on Rexrode right now, just watching this happen. What a time this is. By the way, I don't know if I told you this. I am playing tonight in a celebrity softball game.
Yes.
At the Nashville Sound Stadium, the Rock and Jock celebrity softball game at First Horizon Park tonight. Taylor Lewan will be there. Will Compton will be there as well. A.J. Brown as well. So celebrity may be a loose term with me there. I think Stillman may be playing as well. So that may be worth the price of admission by itself.
I am sorry. Like, I'm absolutely I'm frantic right now. Like, my computer, like, won't. It's going Z, and it won't. How does this happen?
I don't know. We'll get it taken care of. I'll take a look at it here in a second. What a time this is here today on the show. Celebrity softball game tonight. Taking your thoughts all on our text line as well, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Ben on the text line saying, seemed like a lot of begging to keep the guys together again, and Poyle usually likes that idea. Talking about the Predators and their press conferences yesterday. We talked about Johansson. We talked about Duchesne as well, and the clips that they had talking about, Johansson trying to elevate his game in the regular season. Matt Duchesne trying to elevate his game in the regular season as well. Joe Rexrode going after his computer at the moment as well here on the program. I don't know. Look, I didn't really come away from the press conferences yesterday thinking that the team was begging to keep the roster together or anything like that. That's not something that I thought, that really crossed my mind at that point. Now, Johansson did say that he doesn't feel like a lot of changes are needed at this point. I think you could kind of take that any way you wanted to take it. That could be something that a lot of Predators fans probably disagree with, talking about this core group specifically. But I didn't come away from like Yossi and all these different people yesterday thinking, going back to 2017-18, that they're just saying, you know what, we are absolutely keeping this group together, and that's going to be the way we go about handling things. Like, that's not something that really stood out to me from the press conferences yesterday. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's not the vibe I got.
Yeah, I don't think it was as emphatic as it's been. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a post-season presser where guys are going around saying, this needs to get blown up, man. I don't like this group. We don't really play well together. I mean, well, I don't know. Maybe that happened with the Sabres this year, but
maybe so.
For the most part, you're not gonna have stuff like that. So, but yeah, I agree. It wasn't as. You can't. Yeah, there's obviously a different feeling from now from going back 3 years ago when they're the top team losing to the second best team, and they felt like they won the President's Trophy. I mean, I think everybody knows there's going to be some changes ahead.
Well, I think so too. And, Duchesne yesterday talking about, and I found this to be very interesting. I asked him at the end of the press conference yesterday for Matt Duchesne, we've talked a lot about his production and what's got to get better there. But also, one of the reasons that he signed here, rather than, not just the fit and playing down the middle at center ice, and that's a big question moving forward as well, but he also at the time, he called this team a Stanley Cup contender. That's something that he wanted to be a part of. And with the way the last 2 years have gone, does he feel the same way? Here's what Predators forward Matt Duchesne had to say yesterday when I asked him that question.
think we're right there. I thought we were right there when I signed here. I think we're even closer now after being here. That can sound funny to say after a first round exit, 6 games or whatever, but I'll tell you, and I've said this many times, I am proud and honored to be a Nashville Predator. This is where I've wanted to be for a long time. And just because of, the 2 kind of short and weird seasons that didn't go the way we wanted it to, that doesn't change for me. Like I said, the future's bright here. I believe even more now in our core group than I even did when I signed here. And to commit to 7 years to an organization, I mean, that's a big decision to make. And I obviously had faith in what was around, what was in this organization, on this team, to make that commitment, and that hasn't changed one bit. So I'm excited for the future here. I love the boys. I mean, we became a really, really tight group this year. That was something that maybe lacked in the past year, where we were tight, but not as tight as we needed to be. And I think we came together through the adversity. And I think you can never say you're right there, and you can never say you're way out of it, because you just look around the league. The worst team in the league can become one of the best over 2 or 3 years. And I think we're a team that's elite. I still think we could have achieved more this year. I think we could have challenged for the division and not been scraping in the playoffs. I think but at the end of the day, sometimes you got to play the cards you're dealt. So I'm really proud of the guys. I'm proud to be here. I want to spend, the rest of my career here. That's how my outlook, and I'll do everything in my power to do that and help this team hopefully win a Stanley Cup in the near future.
So that was Matt Duchene yesterday at his press conference, kind of talking about the end of, wanting to stay here, wanting to finish his career here with the Predators, but also, Joe, at the beginning of that answer says he feels like the Predators are closer to winning a Stanley Cup now than they were when he signed here. Do we buy that? Is that something that we think was just lip service from Matt Duchene, or do we think that this team, as currently constructed, is closer to winning a Stanley Cup? What did you think of those comments from Matt Duchene?
I mean, again, it's nothing that surprises me a ton. Are they closer? Are they closer than when he came in 2019? They were coming off a first-round loss to Dallas. I think that there was more optimism going into the 1920 season. There was talk. This is the most talented roster the Preds have ever had.
There was.
And then they started out great. And then, it was quite a slog after that start. So I would say league-wide, I would say that I would definitely disagree. I think they are viewed as a lesser team that has gone the wrong way since then. That season obviously got a coach fired, and that was a big dip in the whole thing. But are they actually closer? I mean, maybe. I don't think either version, the beginning of the 1920 season or this team as it ends the 21 season, is terribly close. I mean, like he said, they're elite. You've got to do more than have a great run to sneak into the playoffs to demonstrate that, to me.
Well, I agree. I mean, the elite word, this team's not elite. I mean, you can't go out in the first round. You can't have a regular season where you're barely into the playoffs and be elite. Now, winning 20 out of 28 coming down the stretch, if you factor in that time and just base it totally off that, then yeah, I think you got a top 5 winning percentage. You're elite at that point. But the season's longer than 28 games. That's something you've got to keep in mind if you're the Predators moving forward. I don't know how close they are to being a Stanley Cup contender. I think that's a big part of David Poyle's job, is answering that question and figuring that out this offseason. But I found those comments yesterday very interesting from Matt Duchene as well. Let's go back to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ben talking about seeming like the guys begging to keep the team together again. He says, I think Yossi straight up said it yesterday. I don't think Yossi straight up said he wants to keep the team together moving forward. I don't think he was asked about that. But maybe I'm wrong.
There were a few comments that were, again, like you'd expect. Like, yeah, I think this group can do it. This group.
Sure.
But it was, again, you got to remember, you're referring to something that was very emphatic, from 3 years ago, and that was
that was the theme.
That was the whole thing, exactly. Yeah. So it's not that now. It's definitely not that.
Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Mark from Clarksville texting in. Over under 2 hits for you in tonight's game. You taking the over or the under on 2 hits for me in tonight's celebrity softball game?
Oh, well,
That
I mean,
would,
I guess
number
I
one
wanna,
would depend on how many at bats I
That's
get.
all I want to know. Like, if you get if I know you're getting 3 at bats, well, I need to know you're getting 4. If you're getting 4 at bats, I'll take the over. I'll take you. Like
Because if it's 3, I mean, I got to get 3 hits. It's
right,
the over.
Like
too.
I would expect, you might ground to the second base once or line out, but if you get 4 at bats, I'll take the over. So that's I just don't know. Like,
There's a lot of faith.
Well, yeah, it's softball, man.
That's
It's
true.
fine.
That is true.
And so how many other media people are doing this?
I don't know. That's a good question. The rumor has it Taylor Lewan's there, A.J. Brown's there. I believe Terry Bradshaw might be there as well, which is very interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
No, that's pretty cool.
I don't know if he's playing. I hope he is.
I mean, if you have more guys like Compton and Lewan out there, like pro athletes, that's going to close up your space. The more media people you have, the more likelihood that you're going to have a seeing eye single, or you're going to have one that drops in.
Well, if Jared and I are not on the same team, I'm picking wherever he is on the field. I'm hitting it his way. That's going to be my strategy.
That's a good idea, probably. I hope you're listening, Jared.
As we move forward, ESPN 94.9 is the home for Nashville Sounds baseball. Tonight, the Sounds are on the road to face the Charlotte Knights, the AAA affiliate of the Chicago White Sox. The pregame show with Jeff Hem starts at 5:50, and first pitch is at 6:04. Nashville Sounds baseball on ESPN 94.9, presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans and by 312 Pizza Company as well. When we come back, we'll get into the Julio Jones situation. What's it gonna take for the Titans to land him? And could 2 more teams be out of the mix for Julio Jones? We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. 102.5 The Game and T-Mobile have partnered up to give you a chance to experience a Nashville SC game this season. Tune in every Monday to Darren, Donick, and Chase for the keyword to text in to win. Good luck from 102.5 The Game, T-Mobile, and Nashville SC. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. So let's go back to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Chris texting in saying, you have to have a better stat line than Jared. That's all that matters. So Mark giving me the over-under for 2 hits tonight. Chris just saying, as long as the stat line's better than Jared, that's the only thing people care about.
I definitely want some footage here because Jared didn't come out and do the BP.
Yeah.
First round, which I thought we all acquitted ourselves pretty well that day.
Well,
Chase did what Chase does. But Jared was conspicuously absent from that. So,
he was.
So I'm very interested to see Jared flashing some leather out there tonight. So get some video.
We'll see what happens on that front as well. Joe, the Julio Jones situation, it continues to evolve on a daily basis at this point, and apparently 2 teams that were once in the mix for Julio Jones reportedly are not in the mix any longer, and that is the Baltimore Ravens and the Los Angeles Rams. This information coming from Kimberly Martin from ESPN, appearing on Get Up yesterday, saying that she knows, quote, for a fact that the Ravens and the Rams are done pursuing the Atlanta Falcons wide receiver. Martin also said that the Titans are strong contenders for Jones, and apparently, according to her, most of the people she's spoken with expect that Julio Jones will probably get traded to the Tennessee Titans. So this is not the first time we've heard probably the rumors are that Julio Jones gets traded to the Tennessee Titans. But Kimberly Martin saying yesterday that knowing for a fact that the Ravens and the Rams are done pursuing Julio Jones. What does that mean in terms of how you view the Titans and their chances to land Julio Jones? And do we buy that at this point the Ravens and the Rams are completely out, given the fact that Julio Jones has not been traded yet?
Well, I trust Kimberly's reporting. She's a very good reporter. And I guess I would look at it like they're out unless they get back in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But clearly it sounds like, the Falcons are not getting the offer they hope to get. That's obvious. I even think that some of the stuff that came out last week felt a lot like the Falcons trying to manufacture more of a market. So, it seems to me like maybe the Titans are sitting with something, which obviously isn't good enough for the Falcons, but are sitting with something that may be good enough at some point.
Yeah.
How long? How long is the stare down if that's the case? I don't know, but if you're a Titans fan, I think that report should make you feel – if you're a Titans fan who wants Julio Jones, and I know some don't, but I would think that would make you feel a little bit better about your team's chances of pulling this off. The Falcons need – so I've heard some people talk about how the Falcons have no leverage because of the cap hit, but the leverage is the market, and that's what the Falcons desperately need. They need a bunch of teams – fighting with each other to drive the price up. So you remove 2 teams from the equation, that's good for you if you hope to get him and not give up way too much. It also makes me think we could be sitting on this for a while.
Could be, and it also makes me think, all right, if those 2 teams are out, who's still left in the mix? We've heard about the Titans. We've heard about the Patriots potentially having interest as well, the 49ers potentially having interest. I'm thinking back to Jeff Schultz and the article that he had and the teams that he mentioned that could have potential interest. The Ravens, the Niners, the Patriots. I think the Colts and the Chargers were on that list as well, in addition to the Titans. So if you pull 2 teams out of that mix, all of a sudden the Titans, the Niners, the Patriots, the Colts, and the Chargers, I guess that would leave 5 teams potentially that have interest there. It's not like every team in the league can make this work. So there's only a limited amount of market that you have anyway if you're the Falcons. But I will say I'm starting to become more and more a believer that this could happen for the Titans and that Julio Jones could end up here at some point, whether that's in the next couple of days or if this drags on for another couple of weeks. Joe Rexrode, I'm starting to allow myself to believe that Julio Jones could be a Titan.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's right in there. It's one of those things that I still would advise fans, especially fans who are so in love with this idea now, to still keep it like I don't think the percentages are like close to 50%, right? So
Right.
You gotta, this is one of those things where I think it would be great for the Titans if it could. You gotta keep those expectations tempered here, because there's still a lot of other teams. Honestly, one of the biggest reasons I think the Titans should be staying on the phone on this is like you don't want him in Indy.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, you are trying to figure out how do you win the AFC? How do you beat the best teams in the AFC? But you can't end up out of this looking at Indy with with what they have up front in the backfield. We'll see with Wentz, but I still think Wentz gives you a higher ceiling than Rivers did last year. And then you throw in Julio Jones with that defense, it's a problem. Now, if you're the Colts, you don't want the Titans to end up with him. You can't relish the idea of going against that offense with him. So I just that's where, if I'm the Falcons, I'd like those two teams to get into this. I'd like those two teams to get into something.
Just get into some sort of bidding war there.
And Chris Ballard he's managed to build this team and keep he has a lot of cap space right now. So he can do this, without the gymnastics that John Robinson would have to perform.
That's the thing too. I mean, if you're John Robinson, and Ben brought this up yesterday on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, is it possible that you've already got some deals, maybe not worked out, but deals verbally agreed to kind of move some money around if you have to bring in Julio Jones? Like, to me, obviously, if the Titans are in the mix, they're prepared to do something to get Julio Jones in here, whether that's having the Falcons take part of the money. I don't know. I don't know exactly what the strategy is for the Titans right now to get Julio Jones into the fold, but I agree with you. Like, if you're the Falcons, you absolutely want teams to get into a bidding war with each other, and the Colts and the Titans in the AFC South, that could make a lot of sense. Like, right now, I look at this division, I think those two teams are pretty close. Like, I think it's pretty even. I am not sold on Carson Wentz. I am sold on Ryan Tannehill. To me right now, that's the difference in the division. I will say, though, if you give Carson Wentz Julio Jones, I start to become a little bit more sold on Carson Wentz at that point.
Yeah. Dan Orlovsky tweeted out a stat yesterday about, Julio Jones and QB rating, and Matt Ryan's rating is dramatically different when he plays or doesn't. And it shouldn't be a surprise that it would be better, but it's a massive difference. He's the type of guy who
it's 20 points higher with Julio Jones.
Yeah, it's the type of guy who helps a quarterback be better. There's always the risk, and all that stuff, and the money. There are reasons to have pause about this. There's definitely reasons to not give up the farm for this, but this could be really good for the Titans if they could pull it off.
When we come back, we'll continue the discussion on the Titans, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. We heard from new Titans offensive coordinator Todd Downing yesterday for the first time. What do we think of that? What do we think of his prospects for this offense? How much of pressure is on him trying to replace Arthur Smith into the fold? We'll get into all that coming up next as well. Preds fans, make sure you're joining Darren McFarland, Pete Weber, and Hal Gill tonight at 6 o'clock as they recap the Predator season and look ahead to the offseason. Hear from David Poyle and head coach John Hines on what's next for the Preds. It's the Predators season recap show tonight at 6 o'clock here on ESPN 1025 The Game and the Game Nashville app. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game.
I think every stop along the way for me in my career, has taught me something. I've been able to glean a little wisdom, I hope, from each stop. And the trip in Oakland's no different. My time in Minnesota, both stretches and everything in between. Hopefully I've grown as a coach, and I'm always looking for ways to improve daily and certainly from year to year. So I'm looking forward to the challenge. But I do think they're individual entities. I don't think you can compare one to the other and say they're apples to apples. So each one's going to bring its own challenge, and I'm excited for the challenge.
That was new Titans offensive coordinator Todd Downing speaking to the media yesterday for the first time at OTAs over with the Titans. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. Joe Rexrode, yesterday was the first time that we've heard from Todd Downing since he became offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans. What was your reaction to his press conference yesterday, and how much pressure do you think is on Todd Downing heading into this season, his first as the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans?
Well, I think Todd Downing, said about what I would have expected him to say, and I think it's a fair point to make. There's not an apples-to-apples comparison here. It's 1 year, too, which is it's just hard to – I know there's some Raiders fans out there that we could find, including a friend of the show, who would say, you don't want that guy to be your OC, but I'm real hesitant to buy into that. I mean, they had a lot of issues that year on that offense, including, Carr.
How many Raiders offensive coordinators in the past 15 years have done a great job? Not very many.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Obviously in the year before they were like this rising team, and Carr was this rising star, and he breaks his leg on the same day Mariota does, next to last game of the 16 season, and that was part of the 17 story too. But I agree with Todd Downing. It's different personnel, and it's just a different situation. It's one of those things where I think Arthur Smith was very good as a coach with players and relationships, and then obviously he had a great feel for it. There is pressure on Todd Downing. It's hard to be the coach who follows that coach. I think that's part of why the Shane Bowen was sort of transitional DC, let's call him, in 2020, because Mike Vrabel knew that Dean Pease it was going to be very tough for whoever was going to follow him up. And there wasn't just like some seasoned, obvious, experienced guy who had a resume to say, look, I can do this, to throw in there. So he went young and he did what he did. And now for Todd Downing, if things go wrong this year, Todd Downing will be a very, very easy scapegoat. The OC's already the easy scapegoat. I mean, even last year, best Titans offense ever, you have a bad stretch, you lose a game, whatever. Arthur Smith, what are you doing, Art? He didn't have a great game against Baltimore. His last outing with the Titans, I wouldn't say that was his finest moment.
No.
The OC is the easiest coach in sports to criticize. I truly believe
agree.
that. It's any other coach, fine, you can see like what the hockey coach does with his lineup or his line changes, and substitutions and things like that, but like minute by minute, incrementally, you can see every single thing that the OC does on a game day. And whatever doesn't work was a stupid call.
Yeah.
It's that simple. Did the play work? Well, if not, then what are you doing? You should have run. You passed, and it was incomplete. You should have run. You ran, you got stuff. You should have passed.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. It's certainly like the most immediate reaction of what you do, immediately scrutinized out there for the offensive coordinator. Look, and it's a tough spot for him to be in. I think it's also a spot where if you're Todd Downing, yes, there's pressure. And he talked about yesterday, not trying to fill Arthur Smith's shoes. They're two different people, and talked about how, he's going to come in and this is their offense now, and they've got to move on past Arthur Smith. But also, like if you're Todd Downing, yeah, there's pressure. There's also a lot of opportunity with this offense as well. You've got a 2,000-yard rusher. got some stuff to figure out with the tight end position. Interested to see what they do there. Got a dynamite weapon in A.J. Brown, a quarterback that you feel good about. I mean, you're stepping into a situation in an offense that even though there are some flaws as presently constructed, and even though there are some questions to try to identify and answer as you move forward, there's also a lot of potential with this offense. And to me, if I'm Todd Downing, you can look at it one of two ways. You can look at it like, oh boy, I got a lot to live up to with this team, or man, what an opportunity I've got to come in and for the second time in my career try to redeem myself as an offensive coordinator here with the Titans.
Yeah, and even if he doesn't look at it like that, like redemption, I mean, I hope he looks at it like a great opportunity. I mean, it's a great job. A lot of people would love to be an OC in the NFL, let alone an OC in the NFL with this collection of talent, with this quarterback. And if there was something that caught my ear from Todd Downing yesterday, when he talked about Tannehill's preparation, Tannehill's sort of desperation to find every little edge, that's the best friend for an OC. If you have a partner at QB who isn't just talented, isn't just a leader, but also thinks the game like you do and is trying to find these little things, these little nuances that can make a difference, one or two plays in a game, setting up a defense for something later in a game. I mean, the student of the game thing I don't think can be overrated at all. And I think that, most quarterbacks probably fall into that category, but that was some pretty strong commentary from Downing, and we've heard it from others before about Tannehill. So you got to feel good about that. You got to feel good about your offensive line. Like you said, you got an okay running back. He's all right.
He's not bad.
Got an okay receiver. He had some strong comments about A.J. Brown too, and good questions for him about, A.J. Brown this year. I mean, you take away Jonnu Smith, Corey Davis, you probably expect even more attention on A.J. Brown as you move forward, and that's very true, and that's where you have concern, and where if you're him, you're probably trying to figure some things out, and maybe you're sitting there just thinking about Julio.
I did ask you because this was going on at the same time yesterday, this press conference with Todd Downing, as the Predators stuff was, which I always love it when two teams just collide like that.
Yeah, seems to happen a lot.
See, it does seem to happen.
It's happening today. OTA's on the field while Poyle and Hines talk, so awesome.
It's a fun time. But I was going to ask you, did you get the full body shot of Todd Downing? Was there a Julio Jones Falcons jersey that he was wearing underneath? I was looking for any mixed messages or hidden symbols sent that way by Todd Downing. Maybe to J-Rob.
I mean, A.J. Brown should have made him also a makeshift jersey with a little painter's tape to do the number 8.
That would have been awesome.
Yeah, I was waiting for him to be like Mr. Subliminal. Did anybody get that reference?
No.
No?
No.
Kevin Nealon, Saturday Night Live?
I wasn't a big Saturday Night Live guy.
Yeah. Well, see, that era was when it was the best ever. So
I know, but I was young.
Yeah, well, right. I mean, you may not have even been born when this stuff was big. But so Kevin Nealon would be like, yeah, I think we really have a great offense. Everything's fine. We need Julio Jones. I got no complaints at all. Please sign Julio Jones. Please sign. Oh, my God. So, subliminal messaging, if you guys have heard about this, used to these quick flashes in commercials. And supposedly, get in your brain and you'd have to go buy a Coca-Cola. So I was thinking about Todd Downing yesterday, thinking about Mr. Subliminal, just please sign Julio. And no, I mean, we're really happy with our receiver room. I mean, we really like Josh Reynolds. I mean, Des Fitzpatrick coming in. We got Cam Batson and Nick Westbury. Oh my God, I need Julio so bad. It's really great. I'm going to quit if you don't sign Julio. Mr. Subliminal. That came to mind yesterday. For anybody who hasn't seen Mr. Subliminal, I expect some support on the text line on this. By the way,
there you go.
You can find it on YouTube. It's good.
615-737-1025. 615-737-1025. Speaking of jerseys, Elijah Campbell, what jersey do you have on today? Because it is glorious.
Oh, this is as rare as it gets. This is a Soviet Union Olympic Arvydas Sabonis jersey, a number 15 Arvydas Sabonis jersey. The best version of Arvydas Sabonis, probably the best passer or best basketball player that America never got to see the prime of.
Do we think that Elijah Campbell is the only human on the earth currently that owns an Arvydas Sabonis Soviet Union basketball jersey?
It's a pretty sweet jersey, I must say. It's a pretty now.
Where did you get this thing?
A website called DHgate.
Okay.
I got it for $15. Had to wait 4 months for it, but it was worth the wait.
There you go.
That brings me back to the '88 Olympics, right around the time that Mr. Subliminal was very popular on Saturday Night Live, and the huge disappointment of losing to that team and not even being in the gold medal game for the United States. And
I was loaded though. That was a good team, and none of those guys really got to play in America. Sabonis did later on, but way past his prime.
Way later. And that was
prime Sabonis.
I love Virginia Tech and I love Bimbo Coles, but if Bimbo Coles from Virginia Tech is basically your best player,
probably in trouble.
Yeah, it's time to bring in the dream team.
David Robinson got pushed around.
Yeah. Heidi from Dixon saying, we're the food fighters ever on Saturday Night Live.
Yes, Heidi. The Foo Fighters were on Saturday Night Live. I think multiple times.
I think so, too. Wonder if Dave Grohl's ever hosted Saturday Night Live.
Probably.
I think he has.
I think so. He's been on there with Nirvana, too.
There you
Actually, I think he also was there as Tom Petty's drummer in the mid-'90s, and he almost signed on to be Tom Petty's full-time drummer, but then he decided to start Foo Fighters, Heidi. No D.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says, Elijah should have more input. I appreciate his analysis. His voice could be heard. Fans of Elijah.
Word? Okay.
On the text line.
Or is that non-fans of us?
Oh, could be.
I mean, if they want more Elijah means less of us talking.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe that would be a bonus both ways.
I think that might be it. Subliminally, they want to hear more me so they can
I
hear
really think Elijah.
I think that
Elijah's a super, super nice guy. Robbie and Joe Sock. And I really would like to hear him more. You guys need to get up there. No, I'm not very good. Like, if anybody, you got to YouTube it now and watch it. I'm not doing justice to it.
So you're telling me the Elijah Campbell fan club grows?
It does.
There are dozens of us. Dozens!
There are dozens. Dozens of people.
Nice.
In the Elijah Campbell fan club. Join Stars for their annual golf tournament, the Hart Golf Classic, on Monday, June 14th at Vanderbilt Legends Club. This event pulls together some of our community's most influential leaders and business people, so consider sponsoring a hole and have your investment in the hope, health, and connection of our young people be showcased. Registration to play is still available. The tournament is a scramble format with an 8 a.m. shotgun start. Breakfast and lunch will be provided. It's the Hart Golf Classic for Stars Nashville on Monday, June 14th at Vanderbilt Legends Club. For more information, please visit starsnashville.org or call 615-983-6805. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on the Tennessee Titans and get to everybody's favorite topic, which is Shane Bowen as defensive coordinator. Gentry Estes from the Tennessean, friend of the show, had an interesting take on Shane Bowen yesterday. We'll get to that coming up next as well. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Taking your thoughts all show long on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. We're going to have Michael Rothstein, who covers the Falcons for ESPN. He joins us to begin the 8 o'clock hour. So coming up in about 10 minutes or so, we'll get into the Julio Jones situation for him. Look for exactly what it's going to take for the Titans or any team to land Julio Jones if they want to see him come back the other way in a trade. That coming up to begin the 8 o'clock hour. Joe, we talked about Todd Downing and the pressure he faces coming into this season, his first as the offensive coordinator for the Titans. But somebody that may be under equal, maybe more pressure heading into this season is Titans defensive coordinator Shane Bowen. Now, as we know, he's actually the defensive coordinator this year. This is the title that he's been given by Mike Vrabel, which was a big deal at the end of last year.
Or not.
Or not a big deal, depending on who you ask at the end of last year. But Shane Bowen, officially the defensive coordinator heading into this season. And our friend Gentry Estes, who joined us earlier this week on the show from the Tennessean, wrote a piece yesterday talking about Shane Bowen and how it seems like he's kind of a different Shane Bowen in a good way, as Gentry Estes put it, and said even if Mike Vrabel doesn't want to admit it, titles are important. They do matter to people, and they matter in your job. And has a quote in here from Bowen saying, talking about what's changed being the defensive coordinator, quote, ultimately being the final voice, right? It has changed in that regard. That's an interesting comment there. What do you think of that? And as Gentry points out here, having this actual title, we've made so much of that. At the end of the day, how much of a difference do you think that actually makes for Shane Bowen heading into this year?
Well, I think it has to make a difference. And, it has to make a difference in the building. I mean, look, you can say, okay, hey, guys, Shane's doing this, he's doing that, and everybody kind of knows, okay, so he's pretty much doing, like, DC stuff. But yeah, that is why people have titles. Again, otherwise, just say we're all coaches. We're all football friends.
Yes.
We're all just football friends at the building with no titles, and we just, work together, and, yay, we'll just walk around to different groups and have fun and play patty cake. I mean, titles do matter. Now, I get the idea of what he did last year, and we've talked about it. Belichick has done it before, too. So, I get the reasoning. I guess Vrabel just never really sort of laid it out for us like that and then acted like we were, overreacting to it. But, yeah, there is a reason that you give titles. And if you're Shane Bowen now, you got to feel like, okay, people know I'm the DC. And because I asked him yesterday just about okay, so in a game week, what's different? And of course, the big obvious thing is what he pointed to, which is he is no longer restricted to the OLB room or, to being with the outside linebacker group at certain times when position coaches are going to be with their positions. Now he's the DC who walks around and goes wherever he wants. I think that's kind of a significant thing, really. If you think about it, just taking that off his plate. Now, there are DCs out there, certainly, who also, although not much in the NFL. In college you see it a lot. You see, the DC who's also the safeties coach or the DC
Or you can see a head coach in college that's also the defensive line coach as well.
Oh, boy. Well, that works out. That's some revolutionary coaching there. That's cutting-edge stuff. Coming to New York now for everyone in New York to enjoy.
Yeah, what could go wrong, baby?
Yeah, and then go for some authentic Italian at Sbarro.
Yes.
But I don't think there's many examples of that in the NFL. You're a DC, you're a DC, and so now he is just a DC. So it's got to be way better for him. It's got to be because I'm sure there's appreciation for what I believe was part of the reasoning, which was not sure I want to put everything on this guy, very young coach, right when Dean Pease is leaving. But he got the opportunity, and I know people are mad that he got the opportunity, and I understand, based on last year's defense, how does anyone who's involved with it get rewarded? But we don't know day to day exactly what happened, who was at fault. Again, this is a much harder position or coaching job to evaluate than OC is. not that the evaluations of OC aren't often inaccurate and wrong, but the DC is still, it's a harder job it's harder to decipher everything last year, what all went wrong. Clearly, Mike Vrabel, in his mind, without actually saying, like, our players weren't good enough, that's basically what he said from midseason on.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And look, it's a different title, obviously, but it's a different feel for Shane Bowen heading into this year. How much of a difference is that ultimately going to make with this defense? I don't know. I mean, it's also really a completely different defense when you look at it too, from top to bottom. So there's a lot of moving parts that go into this discussion as you head into the season. Our friend Bob on Twitter says it's pretty comical that he thinks he's the final voice when he works for a narcissist like Mike Vrabel.
Dang.
That gum.
Well, gee whiz. Well, there is, I mean, the final voice, with, asterisks next to it.
Yeah.
Well, but again, how many go through all the NFL teams and tell me what head coaches don't have veto power over their coordinators?
There shouldn't be any.
They all?
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, it's final voice in terms of with the limitation of knowing that you have a boss still who's on the sideline. Now, of course, there's the Jim Schwartz angle to this too, which Shane was asked about yesterday. I think our friend Corey Curtis asked him about that and just the whole cooks in the kitchen thing and everything, and he gave the answer you'd expect. Hey, you got this guy with tons of experience. Vrabel's been a DC. Jim Haslett has been a head coach in this league. He's on the defensive staff. So why not go to all these people and share ideas and get advice and all that stuff? I mean, the Schwartz thing, I like it. Like, I think it makes sense. And if you followed along with Schwartz's career, I think it is going to be something where, he is scaling back what he has been for a long time. But give it like 4 games. Give it like 4 games of them struggling, and Schwartz watch will start whether it should or not.
Give it like 1/2.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Someone better give Jim Schwartz a headset now.
The first 3rd and 17 converted by another team, we're instantly going into Schwartz watch.
Some people will. I guarantee it.
Oh, those 3rd and 17s.
Oh, those are fun last year. Let's go back to
basically
the text line,
layups.
Driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ben texting in, since Shane could not get them in the right formations and call the correct plays last year, how's that supposed to all of a sudden get better, regardless of personnel? Examples were sagging nine yards off of receivers on a 3rd and 3.
Yeah, well, show me. I'm not saying it didn't happen where a call going to that's I don't think that's an accurate assessment of what happened. Now, did they give too much cushion and play off, I think, too often last year? Yes. Is Jonathan Joseph, should he ever press a receiver in this league?
Probably not.
No. So, I mean, you got to take into account personnel limitations. I'm not disagreeing. Like, it was maddening to watch, especially against, like, Pittsburgh and Indy. Like, he's just going to throw a 5-yard slant, guys. Right. He's not even looking 10 yards downfield.
Well, like, at some point, just make him beat you deep.
Right.
And then they did get beat deep in the Cleveland game.
Well, that guy can throw it. But, I mean, like, then Roethlisberger tries to beat you deep, and Jan Brown has a nice drop and picks him off in the end zone. I mean, there are lots to criticize, but, like, I'm not gonna go there and say, oh, yeah, Shane Bowen couldn't get him lined up. He didn't know the calls. He was up eating popcorn. He's got a lot to prove this year. He's got pressure, too. But I think it's worth having an open mind on him, just as it's worth having an open mind on Todd Downing after one crappy year as OC with the Raiders. We'll see. There's a lot. I mean, they will be a lot of the story this year. But remember, like you just said, this defense, it's completely different. I mean, the bigger story still to me is Bud Dupree what they signed him and paid him to be.
Yep.
And so on and so forth.
Absolutely. It's going to come. Is Caleb Farley going to be healthy? I mean, there's a lot of things it comes down to when it comes to whether or not Shane Bowen is going to be successful. When we come back, we'll get back into the Julio Jones discussion. Michael Rothstein, who covers the Falcons for ESPN, he'll join us coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, live from the Wholesaling Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com. You're on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, hour number 3 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. The NFL, the Tennessee Titans, Atlanta, everybody still in Julio Jones watch. And to help us talk more about that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Michael Rothstein, who covers the Falcons for ESPN. Michael, what's going on? Appreciate you taking time to join us this morning.
Oh, no problem. I'm just following Joe Rexrode from Michigan to the South. That's just really my goal in life.
That's a dangerous thing to do, my friend.
It's I mean, come on, man. Like, right? I mean, who needs this cold weather crap? It's about time, Michael.
It took a while, but yeah, it happened. I mean, I finally decided I wanted to play golf year-round, and that's really what this was all about.
But I think the hard part must have been no longer being able to follow along with the glorious franchise known as the Detroit Lions. How are you going to cope with that, Michael? Not covering that wonderful franchise.
As I was telling Elijah in the break there, I really just feel like I'm moving from trade to trade because I think the last time I spoke with y'all, if I'm remembering correctly, we were talking about Matthew Stafford and him moving from Detroit to ended up being Los Angeles. And that was really one of the last big stories I covered about the Lions. And then I get to Atlanta, and I think it was 3 weeks after I got, hey, guess what? Julio Jones might be leaving. And it's like, okay, here we go again. What's an offseason?
Right.
That's a great question. So, Michael, what's it been like? What's it like right now in Atlanta with Julio watch going on? And what do you think of this situation right now for the Falcons? What do you think Atlanta wants in return for Julio Jones? And what is realistic to get if you're the Falcons?
Right, and listen, there's been a lot of reporting a lot of places, right, about different things. I think ideally they would want, as my colleagues at ESPN have reported, ideally they'd want a first-round pick, but I have to believe, and again, this is just me speculating, this is just me throwing this out there, that if they had a true, hard first-round pick offer, one would think that Julio Jones would already be somewhere else, because the point of all of this when it comes to trading Julio Jones doesn't have much to do with necessarily his ability. It has to do with two things. One, which we have since learned in the last week or so, apparently Julio Jones asked for a trade, and that kind of pushed things forward. And the second part is the Falcons have no money. And you can't operate if you don't have any money, at least under the salary cap. And right now the Falcons can't sign their rookie class. So they need to create money. And with what they've already done to get even close to the cap, which was restructure Matt Ryan, restructure Deion Jones, have Dante Fowler and Tyler Davison take pay cuts, restructure Jake Matthews, they already had to do a lot. So there's basically two high-value guys that they can now do something with, Julio Jones and Grady Jarrett. Grady Jarrett, theoretically, they could restructure or try to sign to an extension because he's in that extension window and he's a guy I think that can be a cornerstone for this franchise going forward. Or they can do something with Julio Jones, which would be trade or restructure. And Terry Fontenot has made it clear he doesn't want to restructure everybody because that's how you just keep kicking that can down the road. And he was with the Saints. And the one team in the worst cap situation than the Falcons right now are the Saints. So he knows all about what not to do in some ways, and I think he was trying to avoid that. So they need to do something to make cap room, and trading Julio Jones seems like the decision that they have more or less made. Now, what they actually get, who knows? I mean, I would imagine they can get something. I think there's going to be enough teams that maybe would have some interest that they can maybe leverage some sort of decent deal, but it's tough to really say right now. There's a lot of people saying a lot of things, but until something actually happens, as I learned with the Matthew Stafford situation, you don't truly know exactly what's going on.
So, Michael, your excellent colleague, Kimberly A. Martin, I think it was yesterday, reported that she believes the Ravens and Rams are out on this right now. There's been kind of a growing buzz out there, that the Titans look better and better as a potential trade partner here. And I mean, obviously that makes sense with some of the familiarity between the staffs and things like that. But do you get the sense that this is sort of a standoff right now, that the Falcons just don't have the offer they like, and that maybe other teams are like, you know what, I'm not coming to you either, so maybe we could be sitting and talking about this for a while?
Possibly, because there's also no impetus to get this done like today, right? I mean, other than for people like me who would love to have it done today. Because
yes, exactly.
Done, right, and from the sense I get from the fan base, is the fan base, if this is going to happen, they would like it to happen sooner rather than later so they can kind of move on with their lives as well, because Julio Jones in Atlanta is a franchise icon. He's one of the best players in franchise history and someone who is very well liked within the city and within the fan base. So I think if it's going to happen, they want it to just kind of happen. And I hate to go back to the Stafford thing again, but that was a week-long thing, and they really – the Lions could have dragged that out for 2, 3, 4 weeks if they wanted to, really all the way up until that March deadline. So when you look at deadlines, really the deadline for the Falcons is right around the start of training camp, because guys are going to participate in mandatory minicamp next week anyway. They sign waivers for that. They've been practicing during these OTA periods anyway. So as long as they really have until July, because once training camp starts, kind of guys need their contracts signed. So they can take this however long they want to. It might behoove them to just get it done sooner rather than later, but if I'm the Falcons, I'm maybe not rushing so fast, and I'm waiting until after minicamp, and I'm waiting until after all of that is everything is over, because maybe something happens with the team. Maybe a team sees something, and all of a sudden they're like, you know what, I really need Julio Jones. I'm going to up my offer. And that could be a scenario. And so if I'm Terry Fontenot and I don't love what I see out there, maybe I'm waiting. But again, I don't know. Terry Fontenot has been very tight-lipped about this entire process. Arthur Smith, if you've seen any of his press conferences the last couple of weeks, when myself and other reporters have asked about Julio Jones, you're not getting anywhere fast. So there's not a lot of information kind of coming out of Atlanta when it comes to exactly what's going on there.
Michael Rothstein on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, covers the Falcons for ESPN. So, Michael, what does all of this mean for Matt Ryan? I mean, obviously you still got Calvin Ridley there. You've just drafted Kyle Pitts. So it's not like you just don't have any weapons on offense. But Matt Ryan getting up there in age, maybe start to looking towards the future if you're the Falcons at some point here. What does all this mean for Matt Ryan and his relationship with the Falcons as they move forward?
I don't think it's going to hurt Matt Ryan's relationship with the Falcons, but it certainly is going to put some pressure on Matt Ryan, I would think. I mean, yes, he still has Calvin Ridley. Yes, he still has Kyle Pitts. They still have Hayden Hurst, too, even though they didn't pick up his fifth-year option. He's still on the team this year. Russell Gage is a good receiver and I think can be a capable number 2 receiver. It's just that you're not going to have 2 number 1 receivers anymore if the Julio Jones trade ends up coming to pass. So if I'm Matt Ryan, I'm still looking around. I still have some good weapons, and I still have some good options. But to me, the thing with Matt Ryan is this. The Falcons very easily could have taken a quarterback at number 4. And that would have put the clock on Matt Ryan, clearly. Probably a very quick clock, potentially. But the Falcons didn't do that. They also restructured Matt Ryan. So Matt Ryan is, I don't want to say he's safe, quote unquote, because, I mean, there's only so much level of safety in the NFL unless you're Patrick Mahomes at this point. But you look at it and you say, okay, he's going to be their quarterback in 2021. There's a decent to good chance he's their quarterback in 2022, and you kind of then go from there. And at that point, he's, 37, 38 years old, and, he probably has decisions to make as well, and his contract, I believe he's going to 2023. So there's a bunch of questions at that point. And to me, if I'm Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith, the way that the Matt Ryan situation is kind of unfolded, if things go south this year for the Falcons, right? Like, say things go horribly bad. Say they go Lions last couple of years bad, just to, bring back to kind of what I had covered before. You're probably blowing a lot of this up and kind of starting over with maybe a different type of nucleus, and that would require trading Matt Ryan or moving on from Matt Ryan. And at that point, maybe Matt Ryan would want to move on, much like Matthew Stafford did there. But if they show that they can be competitive and they maybe show that they can kind of keep things going, then maybe you stick with Matt Ryan and you take his replacement next year, the year after, or you do what the Titans did. You do what the Bucks have done. You do what some other teams have done in the past, which is build around what you have quarterback-wise, and then the quarterback comes last, and maybe it ends up being a veteran. Maybe it ends up being a guy who didn't have the best success one place and wants to go elsewhere. Or, as we're seeing more and more with Matthew Stafford, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, guys are trying, especially quarterbacks, are trying to say, hey, I don't necessarily want to be here anymore, and sometimes they get moved. And maybe you build your team and make it nice and really kind of attractive enough, like Tom Brady in Tampa, where you get a high-end quarterback who wants to come there, and that's the last piece, versus the theory of building around the quarterback, and he has to be your first piece.
All right, quick media question for you, Michael. How is Arthur Smith handling the head coach press conferences? I know this topic has got to be already annoying to him. Have you had the pleasure of talking with Dean Pease yet, and do you miss covering Taylor Lewan?
Oh, man, that's a lot of stuff. I have not talked with Dean Pease yet, but I hear wonderful things about Dean Pease. I have not talked to Taylor Lewan since the last time the Lions and Titans played in Detroit. But it was very nice to talk with Taylor Lewan. I covered Taylor Lewan since he was a freshman in college at Michigan, and he has grown up a lot since then, and it's been awesome to kind of see him grow up and mature and have a podcast that's incredibly successful, which honestly, Joe, you were in Michigan when he was there as well. That's like to the surprise of nobody that he is having a successful podcast. Like That was just his personality. I mean, when he was 18, he had, or 19, he had, I don't know if he still has the finger mustache tattoo, but I'm never going to forget that because he would sometimes come to press conferences and put it up to his nose. And that's just the personality that he had. And it was refreshing and different at a place like Michigan where a lot of times guys are scared to say anything. And then Arthur Smith, he's handled press conferences fine. I mean, yes, last week he got, I don't know, I think he talked for 16 minutes and probably 13 minutes of it were Julio Jones questions. And it was like he was in the movie Dodgeball where, you dip, dive, dodge, dip. I screwed up the reference, but
yeah, we get it.
That's basically what it was like, and he just was like private conversations. And you saw that again when I asked him because I asked him yesterday about, well, is Julio going to be at mandatory minicamp next week? That's the next logical thing. And he went to the private conversations thing. That's kind of his go-to right now is private conversations going to remain private, and he's just not really coming off of saying that. I will say this, for a rookie head coach, he is very good at, I am staying on my message. I am not getting flustered or frustrated with any of that. And that, to me, has been impressive because I've covered enough head coaches that if you kind of get to them enough and you ask them the question enough times, they say something they probably don't necessarily want to say. But Arthur Smith, to this point, has been very, very toe the line with all of that. And frankly, it has been a little bit impressive that he's been able to do that so well, considering he's in month 4 of being a head coach, month 5 of being a head coach, and hasn't had many press opportunities, and hasn't, if we're being honest, met any of the people that are covering him because of COVID restrictions still. So he doesn't have any relationships with any of us yet, and that's part of it. But that was a long answer for he's doing fine so far.
Oh, great stuff, man. Michael Rothstein from ESPN has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode, covers the Atlanta Falcons all over the Julio Jones watch down there in Atlanta. Michael, really appreciate you taking time to join us this morning.
Hey, no problem. Anytime.
Absolutely. Thanks, we'll be back. We'll react a little bit to what Michael had to say there. Get back into the Julio Jones conversation. Taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Listen to the game every weekday for your chance to win $1,000. It's the game's 1K payday presented by Kentucky Kingdom and Hurricane Bay. Listen for keywords at 9, at noon, and at 3 o'clock. And when you hear it, go to thegamenashville.com and enter the keyword for a shot at $1,000. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Our friend Gregory tweeting in this morning saying he bought a Soviet Union Olympic basketball jersey off a sketchy website for $15. He can grow a mustache to reveal Chuck Norris. He is the most interesting radio producer who lives in a haunted house. We're talking, of course, about our own Elijah Campbell. Elijah, he's photoshopped your face on like the Dos Equis guy here from the commercials. It's an interesting resemblance here.
I look like Sacha Baron Cohen. It's exactly what that looks like. Apparently, if you give the Dos Equis guy my eyebrows and my nose, he turns into Borat. So I don't know if that's a good or bad thing for the Dos Equis guy, but uncanny. It's the first thing I thought of. Greg's really good with this face app swap, and that's the first time that I've ever. That's the first time I've gotten that treatment where my face is on somebody else, and I end up looking like one of my idols, Borat.
The Elijah Campbell fan club continues to grow today. That's what we're here about on the show.
There are dozens.
There are dozens.
Explain the haunted house.
Yeah, you live in a haunted house?
Yeah, well, it's just my house is really old, and I live right next to Stones River Battlefield, basically on it.
Okay.
So there's a lot of history in that part of Murfreesboro where I live.
Yes, there is.
My Xbox has a thing where it likes to turn itself on and off at like 2 or 3 in the morning when I'm trying to sleep. So that's happened a couple times. And one time, this all stemmed from like a text message I got from a roommate too as I was starting Darren, Donick, and Chase one day, where I'm here in the producer chair, right? And I get a text from one of my roommates. He's like, "How long have you been gone?" And I was like, "I've been gone for a couple of hours, man. What's up?" He goes, I heard someone going up and down the steps, and Lucas, who's my younger brother, who also lives upstairs with me, was downstairs. He's like, "I thought it was you getting ready," and then I got out of the car got to my car to go to class, and saw your car wasn't here, and I'm really freaked out.
Wow.
No,
how about that?
This could be like Poltergeist.
I've
been, be careful.
I've been waiting.
Don't go to the light. Don't go to the TV.
So when it turns itself on, I need to stay away from the TV whenever it starts turning itself on and off.
Yes.
So,
wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, Darren is obsessed with that fact. He'll ask me about it every now and then. It has reached I guess a point of fascination on Darren, Donick, and Chase. So
wow.
Well, keep us updated whenever the hauntings continue.
Yes.
Yeah, well, if I ever go missing, you know where to look, and that's inside my TV. And then this is what the fourth Poltergeist movie will take place there.
Yeah. We'll root for you from afar.
Stay away. Thanks to Michael Rothstein for joining us in the last segment. What did you think there of his analysis on Arthur Smith? It is funny. I saw a little bit of his press conference yesterday answering all these questions about Julio Jones. And, Arthur Smith is fine. He's friend of the show, Arthur Smith, and look, he's going to do, I think, a really good job in Atlanta as a head coach. But you can kind of tell already that the Julio Jones stuff starting to annoy Arthur Smith at this point.
Yeah, understandably so.
Yeah.
But part of the job, part of the deal. Arthur Smith, someone who I would say, he does fine. I don't think he loves that aspect of the job.
No.
I don't know that a ton of coaches do. But I suppose, you're a new coach in the NFL. You're probably taking over a bad team. There's probably going to be some personnel stuff. And, there's stuff like that's probably going to come with it. But this is quite a bit of stuff for him early in his tenure. There's just so much upheaval there, or potential upheaval.
Yeah, and I'm interested too. Like, that's why I asked Michael about, Matt Ryan, because we talked about this heading into the draft for the Falcons. You're picking number 4 overall. And we knew quarterbacks were going top 3. And that left to kind of an interesting decision for Arthur Smith and the Falcons. Like, do you try to draft your quarterback of the future and maybe let it ride with Matt Ryan one more year and then move in a different direction? Or do you take the best player available on the board, which is Kyle Pitts? Obviously, we know what happened. They took Kyle Pitts. I don't know. Like, what do you think their confidence level is in Matt Ryan? And if I'm Arthur Smith, like, that's part of the reason you take the job is the offense there, and you feel like you can do really good things with it. Even without Julio Jones, I mean, Calvin Ridley, Gage is there. you think you know what you have in Kyle Pitts. That's a pretty dynamic athlete at this point. Like, to me, the story in Atlanta kind of continues to be the same, even if Julio Jones isn't there, is where you still have an offense that you feel pretty good about. That defense, you talk about challenges. Dean Pease got a challenge on his hands heading to that defense in Atlanta.
Yeah, absolutely. That needs the most work. And that's, again, why when this trade stuff, I think certainly they understand and realistic about where they are. But keeping Matt Ryan and not doing the quarterback thing, I kind of still read as a view that maybe they're not in this multi-year rebuild mode. And, if that's the case, that's where a trade, if you're a potential trade partner, maybe a veteran going back is attractive. We talk about the picks, but if they get someone who could help that defense right now on the field, I'm sure Dean Pease would not mind that. And the hard part is finding exactly who that is. But most people are talking about picks here. Again, go back to Jeff Schultz when we had him on. I mean, his reporting kind of led him to believing that, they want to move that 15-3 or whatever it is, 15-5 off the cap this year, but they're willing to take some back if it means, a football player who can help their defense, especially their defense, or a running back, which is the one thing that offense does kind of lack. They don't have that guy. And look, when the Falcons were great, they at times had two guys who were playing at a high level at that position. That's one big difference between now and then with the Falcons.
When we come back, we will switch gears. Vanderbilt baseball, being the number 4 national seed heading into the NCAA tournament, they're playing against Presbyterian coming up on Friday at 6 o'clock. Our very own Max Hers will join us all over Vanderbilt baseball, all over Vanderbilt sports in general. We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5. The Game, Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Vanderbilt, the Vandy Boys, hosting the regional once again. Nashville Regional coming up this weekend. They get underway on Friday against Presbyterian. And to help us talk more about that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and bring in our very own Max Hers, host of the Anchor Down podcast, also a producer here at 102.5 The Game as well, and with the SEC Network. Max, is there any place you don't work for? What's going on, man? How we doing?
Hey, I could say the same for you at times, Robby. So
That's
appreciate
true.
the love.
Absolutely. Max, you're as plugged in with this team as anybody. As you kind of look at the journey that it took to get to this point for Tim Corbin and company, you finished the season. Obviously, Vanderbilt, another very successful season, 40-15, the number one seed in this regional. What's the journey been like to get to this point? And as you look at this roster, what do you think the outlook is for this Vanderbilt team as they begin regional play starting this weekend?
Yeah, kind of from January, Corbin was playing down the team as inexperienced, which I never really agreed with, just because everybody's inexperienced because nobody played conference games last year. So his point was that even most of the best players on the team, many of whom were proven last year, like Jack Leiter and Carter Young, had never played a conference game. But to me, that didn't really mean much just because you knew these guys were going to produce, and it's played out that way. They've moved around the lineup a lot, more so because of injuries along the way than because of performance. But I feel like as long as Carter Young is back, which I would expect him to be at least in some capacity this weekend, going to give it a try, I would say they got a group of 9 that they really like. They've obviously got 2 of the best starting pitchers in all of college baseball, which has had eyes on them all season long, and for Kamar Rocker the last 3 seasons. So this is not only the last go through the postseason for both of those guys, it's also their only go through the postseason together. So I think Leiter and Rocker will be in the spotlight as usual, but I mean, this is a Vandy team, especially with the draw they have. I think they got a pretty favorable draw, both in the regional and in a potential super. So I expect them to be a favorite to get to Omaha right now, without a doubt.
So, Max, down the stretch here, first of all, you mentioned Carter Young. I mean, certainly he's been out for a few weeks. That's a huge loss in the lineup and in the field. But the lineup's kind of been up and down. And then, of course, the bullpen has not been as deep maybe. Ethan Smith, though, is another guy who maybe makes a difference. If you could fix one of those two things, in terms of, offense or bullpen, what do you think is more important? What do you think is more realistic?
Well, I think offense is more important. I think there is more of a built-in fix to the issues that there have been with the bullpen, with just how the coaching staff will manage in the postseason. They manage differently with their pitching selections in the regular season than they do in the playoffs. In a playoff game or in an elimination game, which they may not get to this weekend, they have a chance to go undefeated, which they did 2 years ago and never even face elimination in a regional. But if you get to an elimination game, they're not going to manage that like they managed the Sunday game at Ole Miss 3 weeks ago when Hunter Owen came in the 3rd inning for Pat Riley and gave up a 10-run inning. In a situation like that, they would likely go to either Nick Maldonado or Luke Murphy, who are by far their 2 best relievers this season throughout the year. So I think the management of the game kind of fixes whatever bullpen issues there have been. Because you got to remember, in 2019 in Omaha, in 6 games, only 3 relievers pitched when Vanderbilt had the lead: Tyler Brown, Jake Eater, and Zach King. Other than that, everybody else who came out of the bullpen came in when Vanderbilt was trailing. So they're only going to go to the premium guys with protecting a lead. So I think that will help those issues while they have others along the way to throw in lefty matchup situations like Hugh Fisher or somebody like Nelson Berkwich who can pitch while the team is trailing. But I think those 3 this year will be Chris McIlvain and then Maldonado and Murphy. And hopefully Ethan Smith is available this weekend too. I don't think it would be for more than an inning at a time if he is, but I think he's out there. So with that in mind, I think the offense is more important to make sure is right this weekend. But over the course of the season, they haven't really had back-to-back games where they didn't hit and it cost them a game. I mean, they've had low-scoring wins, but they found ways to score enough, I mean, at least every other game, even if they have an off night. And I think Young being back would be a big part of that, even if he probably isn't 100%.
The great Max Hers on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Max, Look, it's one thing in the regular season to have that Friday-Saturday rotation of Rocker and Leiter. How much more are those two and that strength for this team amplified when you get to this time of the year once regional play begins?
Yeah, this is a sport in college baseball specifically. Baseball at large is kind of this way, but the way the college baseball postseason is structured, if you can win 2 out of 3, 4 times, you win the national championship. You have to win 3 to win a regional, but if you win the first 2, it makes it pretty easy to get that last one in a couple of cracks, at least in Vanderbilt's experience. Then a super is a true 2 out of 3. Then in the College World Series, it's those exact same 2 formats over again. So with those 2 guys as the front 2, I mean, if you get both of them to win, you're a win or 2 away from a national championship right there. And obviously, you can't expect them to win every start. We saw that down the stretch. Neither of them were going as deep in games, but I think they'll be able to go deeper this weekend with everything on the line. But I think with the ball in those guys' hands, their last go-around at this, I think it plays into how you win a title perfectly, both on paper and on the field. So they've almost, those 2 guys alone, got the whole format of this sport mastered.
How do you feel about them individually right now? Seems like Rocker has been pretty, stable and solid. Obviously, Leiter was just absolutely on fire, had some hard times, skipped a start. How would you evaluate them individually at this moment?
Yeah, I think they both had a dip along the way. Rocker's was a little earlier than Leiter's, and they've both come back from it. So Rocker had a 3-start stretch in, I believe, the second, third, and fourth weeks of SEC play, really just the second and the third week, where his velocity was down like 4 or 5 miles an hour. And I just asked him about it because it became a big story in the MLB draft world, and he was falling from second and third overall to as far as 7th and 8th overall, and he really hasn't moved back up, which is odd to me. So I just asked him about it because it became this big story, and he said it's kind of a normal midseason hump to have to get over. These guys start throwing like right after New Year's. That is early in the year, especially with how little they threw last year in game action and how different the calendar was. And guys in the fall season didn't know when exactly to start or stop throwing along the way. So there were a lot of challenges, and Rocker's velocity just went down. He said it was a midseason hump that he had to get over. He was confident that it would get back. He says it didn't dip as much as kind of the MLB draft writers of the world said it did, and he has more metrics than they do, so I, even though he's biased, will at least partially trust him on that one, that it didn't drop fastball into the 89, 90 range. I mean, it was still a little bit 91, 92, which is fine compared to his usual 93, 94, 95. But the thing that stands out to me, having followed his whole career, is the last 2 years, basically the same thing happened to him at that same point of the season. In both years, he had to miss a start. This year, he didn't miss a start. So he just kept on pitching through it, and even though his velocity was down, to me, that's a win, that he shows that he can pitch through that and still win a couple of those games, too. So that's well behind him. His velocity's been back up. Last week, the control wasn't great, but other than that, he's been solid the last few starts. On the lighter side, talking with Tim Corbin and especially Scott Brown, the pitching coach, they are really happy with the decision to sit him out for a week against Alabama. They think the decision worked. We've seen it with him. I mean, same as Rocker, coming back from the velocity drop. He's been back to normal in terms of stuff these last few weeks, and they like the decision to do it. The thing that they saw on his, I guess underlying metrics is the right word, but statistics that they keep internally that aren't really publicly kept, his whiff rate was way down. He was getting way fewer swings and misses, especially on his fastball. And like you said, Joe, that's what he was doing earlier in the season. He was blowing guys away. That's what he was doing in the no-hitter. And the fastball had kind of lost its life in its late run, and a week off seems to have gotten it back. So I think that's a win for the coaching staff, who, I mean, he threw a lot of pitches in the no-hitter earlier. Who knows what causes what, but I think that's a win for them in that decision, and they've got him for the games that matter most. Just like I said, they manage these games differently. All eyes are on winning in the playoffs.
You're absolutely right. And Vanderbilt's, I guess, their title defense get underway from 2019 defending national champions on Friday night against Presbyterian. Everything gets started in postseason play for Vanderbilt. The great Max Hurst has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode, the Anchor Down podcast. A producer here on 102.5 The Game, does work for the SEC Network as well. Max, Great stuff as always, brother. Appreciate you taking time to join us this morning.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Probably 3 or 4 o'clock today, we got the big regional preview podcast coming out talking about all 3 teams coming in. So that'll be on the Anchor Down podcast later today.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Make sure you check that out later. Max does a great job here at ESPN 102.5 The Game. When we come back, we'll react a little bit to what Max had to say there. Look ahead to this contest this weekend coming up for Vanderbilt. Also get back to your thoughts on our text line as well. Driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Thanks to Max Hurst for joining us in the last segment. Vanderbilt getting regional play underway this weekend. Their first game against Presbyterian coming up on Friday. Joe, I was telling you during the break, obviously Vanderbilt had another great season. They're the number 4 seed nationally heading into this tournament, and they're right there in the thick of things in terms of competing for a national championship. I feel like, though, this time of year, with the format being what it is, the rest that they've gotten kind of heading into this, that Rocker and Leiter specifically could just blow through people in the regional and super regional right into Omaha. Like, it just kind of feels like those two single-handedly could give up like a combined 2 runs in the next couple of rounds as they head into Omaha.
Well, certainly, if you can get to like the super, this is where it's such a, it's a 2 out of 3, and it's of course, if you got to the final series, it'd be the same thing. That'd be very tough to do, I still think, for Vanderbilt. But 2 out of 3 format, man, you feel good about those guys. There is a lot of pressure on them, but of course, Rocker has already demonstrated 2 years ago. He rises to the occasion in those moments. Leiter is interesting. I mean, he is just a sophomore. This is his first taste of all this stuff. He was so filthy early in the year. I mean, it was ridiculous, and some of these things are to be expected. Hitting the wall, I mean, in any sport, as a first time going through this level of play, and that league is just, I mean, there's pros on every team that you're pitching to, that you're trying to get out. So, I mean, it's not all that surprising, everything that's gone on, but it does give you a little bit of, okay, wait and see on Leiter and how he handles this whole thing. By the way, since we're talking about Vanderbilt baseball, I will quickly promote the story I wrote today on Tim Corbin's time at Presbyterian.
Please do.
Some stories I had not heard. I'll share one. Maggie Corbin, his wife, now of almost 25 years, she was 8 months pregnant. She was previously married. They met. They were friends. He played her in tennis. She was 8 months pregnant, and he constantly hit drop shots to an 8 months pregnant woman to beat her. And I have a quote in the story. It's like, yeah, I did that. I wanted to win.
Jeez.
Now, she was a 3-time All-American at the College of Charleston. So,
okay.
I mean, but still, I mean.
That's intense.
Drop shotting just all day.
Wow.
So, I mean, some good stuff there. I mean, the Presbyterian, it's really quite a full circle thing that they're coming here Friday. And Elton Pollock, who does have media today, but I talked to him yesterday as they were riding the bus in to Nashville, one of Corbin's great players at Presbyterian, now has him in the NCAA tournament for the first time. They get to play Corbin. Pretty cool story.
It is a cool story. I brought this up, I think, before with Tim Corbin. But, there's that saying out there in sports, like, I hate to lose much more than I enjoy winning. Like, to me, the guy that embodies that the most is Tim Corbin. Look, they win a lot, obviously, and when they win a national championship, he's happy. So I'm not going to sit here and act like he's not. But to me, whenever they lose a game or lose a series, it is pretty funny at times to watch how just upset Tim Corbin is. To me, he embodies the hating to lose.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, and I think most successful coaches and probably athletes, the losses hurt more than the wins feel good.
Yeah.
So there's some normalcy there, but yes, I think he takes it to a different level. I mean, when I'm talking to Elton Pollock yesterday, so again, imagine that. And then imagine 35 years less of maturity.
Yeah.
And coaching Presbyterian College with a bunch of students you've recruited out of the student body to be on your team and going 4-20.
Yeah.
I was talking to Elton Pollock, and he basically just laughed, no, he didn't like losing. But certainly, I mean, there can't be any question. It's part of the formula.
Yeah,
for success here. There's no doubt.
I don't think there's any question about that. And Vanderbilt underway coming up on Friday against Presbyterian. Speaking of somebody that does not like to lose, Mike Krzyzewski, Duke coach. He's been there for a long time, 41 seasons with the Duke Blue Devils, announcing that this upcoming season will be his last. Mike Krzyzewski will be retiring after the 21-22 season at the University of Duke. Obviously, Joe, a legend, an icon in college basketball, and basketball as a whole, has done some work with the USA national team as well. So, I mean, we all know who Coach K is. We all know how good of a coach he is. Just your initial reaction to Coach K calling it quits after this year, calling it a career with one more run coming up with the Duke Blue Devils.
Yeah, it's a huge story. And the most surprising thing to me is that apparently John Shire has already been chosen to be his successor.
Yeah.
I mean, that one kind of hit me out of left field. I'm like, gosh, I remember calling John Shire when Michigan State was trying to recruit him out of Chicago. He was a kid. This was wasn't this 4 years ago? No. But that was surprising to me. And look, I guess it's not surprising that they would go in-house with it. I mean, you've got a ton of options, but for that to already be sort of set up is interesting. And, for Duke's perspective, it's like you want this to be seamless. You want to transition. I think Krzyzewski, I think this represents we're going to see more of this. We just saw Roy Williams retire. Yep. I think, and this was stated yesterday in some of the coverage of this, the portal, name, image, likeness, all these things. I mean, you're going to see, I think, a lot of these old guard coaches, including a guy I think I covered for a long time who I don't think is too far away. That's just me speculating, but I don't think so. Maybe Jim Boeheim will coach till he's 97. I don't know. But,
might.
But Krzyzewski, love him, hate him. I mean, I don't think you can deny his greatness. I think my biggest beef with the whole Krzyzewski narrative is that, Duke does it differently than the other big-time programs that win at this level with that kind of talent. I mean, it's a little bit ridiculous. But look, that's how the game is played. He played it how the game is played. I think you have a strong case that he's the best coach ever. A lot of people would still say John Wooden, but I think it's probably between those two, right?
I would agree.
Can't think of another coach that's got that kind of resume.
Well, and when we talk about, so I hesitate to even introduce these words because I know this is talk radio, poison. But if you did a Mount Rushmore,
oh God,
I know.
Oh, I just threw up.
I know. But it was interesting. If you had Krzyzewski and Wooden, I mean, would Pat Summitt and Gino Auriemma be the other two?
They might be.
I mean, really, what other, I guess, in men's basketball outside of, I guess, Kay and Wooden have the accolades that Summitt and Gino do?
Now you can talk about beyond just what about people who brought social change? I mean, John Thompson is a name that I think is definitely worth mentioning there. There's more to it than just let's add up your rings and your hardware.
Dean Smith.
But, yeah, I mean, right. Dean Smith, there's people who would argue. Now, he had the knock on him forever. Oh, can't win the big one, until Michael Jordan and Worthy and those guys got him in 82. But how many championships did Dean Smith end up with? Was that just the one?
No, because they won the Chris Webber timeout game.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. 11 years later. So 2, but I mean, that's not. But hey, I mean, there is more to it. Consistent excellence, counts for something. But Krzyzewski finished the deal 5 times. That's a big deal. Wooden finished it 10, but he also it was in a small field of the tournament, and he's out west every year. They're playing UCSB and Wyoming to get to the Final Four.
Yeah.
So I'm not knocking John Wooden, but I'm just saying.
Sounds like you were.
Well, I'm just saying it was a little. It was easier than the way the tournament was set up to constantly get there. Now, if you have Bill Walton and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you're going to get there anyway.
Yes,
we can all agree on that.
I would say so.
That certainly helps.
Yeah,
Elijah, your reaction to Coach K calling it quits?
Just feels weird. It's going to be really weird imagining a college basketball season without Roy Williams and Coach K in it. I mean, especially just for me. I mean, I've been watching college basketball since I was 6 years old. So we're talking 2001 on, and that was just the biggest names in college basketball. Coach K was one of them. I'm at least glad I can say that I went to a Duke basketball game and saw him coach in person in a 114-55 blowout over Pennsylvania.
Nice.
Yeah, Denzel Washington was in the house. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah, and I got to be a Cameron Crazy for a night because I got a student ticket.
There you go.
So that was an experience.
If you were a Cameron Crazy, then you may have noticed press row and how the Cameron Crazies are committing felonies rubbed up against reporters and spitting on their necks and editing their stories.
Oh, yeah. There is no space. There is no room for a bubble.
During the game?
It actually, my coworker, my columnist, this literally happened. One of the Cameron Crazies actually was like, "You missed." I wish I could remember the word, but you misspelled,
so and so.
There, that's the wrong usage of there, something like that.
That's the most Duke thing I've ever heard.
And he was like, "Oh, thanks," and I was like, "This is amazing." And if I had to do this for a whole year, I'd quit. Yeah. But it's amazing once every couple of years.
Congratulations to Coach K on a great career. We'll see what Duke's able to do in his last season coming up in 21-22. A bit of a farewell tour for Coach K coming up.
A lot of rocking chairs on the way.
We'll see how much of a blue blood they are with another coach in there.
When we come back, we'll get back into the Nashville Predators. Also some thoughts on the text line, including one Joe Rexrode really wants to get to coming up next as well. 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode live from the Wholesaling Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Welcome back in. Final hour of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Got Hal Gill, Predators radio analyst, coming up at 9:30. We'll get into the Predators, some off-season decisions they have coming up with him later this hour. Looking forward to that conversation. Right now, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Joe Rexrode, speaking of the text line, got a texter talking about Julio Jones, saying, do we really need a player with an ego like Julio Jones on the Titans? Would he be a good team player? Didn't we learn from Jadeveon Clowney?
I'd like to ask what information you have that tells you Julio Jones is not a good team player / has like some sort of unwieldy ego. Never heard a peep about anything like that.
Also, like, did Clowney have like an ego problem? Like, I mean, he's got, obviously. I'm not a big fan of training camp.
Like, yeah, sure. Yeah, like
got a motor problem.
Yeah, he's got a production problem. I mean, I guess you could get mad at him like after he got hurt for like just going back to Houston. I say, good luck with the rest of the year. But I mean, come on, man. I mean, again, it's pro. I mean, he was brought in. He was brought in. You know, he was a mercenary. Come in and fix this. He got hurt. Season's over. I didn't think ego was any sort of issue for Clowney. It was body.
Yeah.
So, was he a team player? Everything I have ever heard about Julio Jones going back to freshman year at Alabama, absolutely A+. I don't know where that comes from.
So, we discussed this earlier in the show, and it was interesting to watch yesterday. I mean, the Titans are having their OTAs going on. The Predators are having their end-of-season press conference with players going on. By the way, John Hines and David Poyle will be speaking today at 1 o'clock Central Time coming up. So you'll hear the coach and the general manager perspective as well. And I think they'll have that for you on Darren, Donick, and Chase as well live. But Pekka Rinne addressing the media yesterday, and I was interested to see what he would have to say. I did not expect, going into this, that he was just going to come out and say, all right, guys, this is it. This is my swan song. I'm telling you now, at the end of season media press conference, this is it. And that's not what Pekka did. He came out yesterday, said he's not ready to make a decision. He's going to take some time and talk it over with his family and figure out what he wants to do. But the big takeaway, Joe, is Pekka pretty much left every option on the table yesterday, including playing elsewhere in the NHL, which is not something heading into the day yesterday that I really had thought about to that point. We talked about it briefly back at the trade deadline of, all right, and that was when things were not going well for the Predators. All right, do you want to go somewhere else if you're Pekka? Maybe give it one last run at a Stanley Cup. And that didn't happen. He stayed here, and we know how it played out. The Predators end up in the playoffs. But Pekka saying yesterday, every option right now pretty much is on the table, and that includes potentially signing with another team. Said he did not want to shut the door on that. What do you think of that? How much of a realistic option do you think that is? That Pekka Rinne could still be in the NHL next year and not be playing for the Nashville Predators?
I can't say I expected that or for him to say that yesterday, but honestly, I'm warming to the idea, and I get it. If he's not done playing, it doesn't sound like he's ready to be done playing. I mean, I kind of thought, okay, you lose your starting job, you're a certain age, and you have a baby at home now. Kind of adds up. But you know what? If he still wants to go through the grind and his summers are grinds, I'm not saying that other players aren't, but I know his are grinds to keep himself at his age where he can play this position at that level. If he's still in on that, why wouldn't you be open to the idea of going somewhere, one, where you have a better chance of winning the cup? I think that would be priority one for him, and two, where maybe your services are a little more needed than you're just the clear backup and the guy who comes in a back-to-back and you support the starter. I know Preds fans, I think the Preds too, would much prefer him to can you just sign another one-year deal, be Saros' backup, be a reliable go-to if Saros gets into a lull, maybe come in and who knows, save the day. And maybe that does still happen. But also I got from yesterday, two things I came away. One is I don't feel like he's done playing. And two, I feel like he thinks he's done here. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe the Preds work it out. And I will be interested to hear what David Poyle says on that front today, like how he addresses that. It may just be, hey, we'd love to have him. That's all I know. Or does he have a little bit of a feeling like Pekka Rinne really wants to move on? But look, if you're Pekka, you've got to feel better about this team and where it is than you did 2 months ago, right? But do you feel like next year you stay, sign a 1-year deal, you have a chance to win a cup? Or if you go to, we threw out a couple earlier, Pittsburgh? If you go to, I mean, look, I don't know, is Edmonton close? I mean, their goaltending is a disaster.
Probably
but that's not the only disaster. Yeah. It's not the only problem with them. But those are two things that come to mind where, like, maybe he could be more than just the two. And with a team that actually has potential, maybe more potential than the Preds to make a run. Now, do the Oilers have more potential? They have the best player on the planet. It's got to count for something. It should count for something at some point. But then again, Toronto's, collection of talent should ever count for something too.
You would think
who knows?
At some point that one of those two would get it figured out. I don't know. I agree with you. Like, I came away from yesterday's press conference with Pekka Rinne and just kind of reading between the lines with some things that he said. It feels like he still wants to play. I mean, he talked about, the most important part of this decision as he's kind of weighing the pros and cons. Number one, what does his family think? But do you still have passion for the game? Do you still have the ability to accept the grind, as you're talking about, the work ethic, everything that is required to get ready and to play this position at a high level? And he said, yeah, he still got that. So to me, I kind of read that as, all right, he still wants to play. We've heard about the rumors of him going back home and playing in Finland for his hometown team where he began his career. He talked about that, said he's heard the rumor. NHL, and that, kind of go out playing at the highest level. So I came away from those two answers specifically saying, all right, it sounds like he wants to play, and it sounds like it's not going to be in Finland. So that means it's going to be in the NHL. Is it going to be with the Predators? Is it going to be somewhere else? I mean, we tweeted that quote out where, and Pekka wasn't saying, yeah, I'm looking around. I'm absolutely looking to play somewhere else. He said he didn't want to close any door, and you understand that this time of year. It's not like he was out there campaigning to play somewhere else. But we talked about and tweeted out the quote of him saying, I don't want to close the door on anything, don't want to close the door on playing somewhere else. And, of course, you get tweets back imagining Pekka in a Blackhawks jersey or a Ducks jersey or a Blues jersey, and it's difficult to think about. It's weird to think about, but I don't know. Like, if you think that you have a chance to go to Washington or the Islanders or who knows, somewhere else that's closer right now to winning a cup, I can see where that would be attractive for Pekka Rinne at this point.
And I would say to Preds fans, to quote Sting in one of the better songs of his mediocre solo career, if you love somebody, set them free. Just let it happen. Let Pekka do what he wants to do and take his run. If he stays, great. If he leaves, it does not change the fact that he's the best player in franchise history. It does not change the timeline for hanging his jersey in the rafters. It'll be the first one hanging. All that stuff will still have happened. Plenty of great players who have long-term careers in one place, go somewhere else at the end or near the end, and
like Brady.
Maybe there you go. Maybe he could be.
What if he goes and wins a cup somewhere else?
Well, if he had Brady's powers, then he would also I guess if that were the case, then Forsberg would have scored 45 goals this year. If Brady were the goalie here, then Matt Duchene would have been a 70-point player.
Yes.
But you can't. Everybody can't be Tom Brady. Why do you get me on these things?
Because you love it.
I can't help myself.
That's why I get you on these things. That is for sure. Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. CC texting in. While I would hate to see Pekka wearing another sweater, I think he should play for a team that will allow him to consistently play and have a legitimate chance to win a cup. I would love to see him play for the Capitals. He would play for a coach who has confidence in him and would make an excellent role model / mentor for Ilya Samsonov, who is their hot prospect and their goalie in Washington as well. Now, look, I hear what they're saying there. My question would be, if you're going to a place and going to a team where Pekka Rinne is getting, quote, significant playing time, all right, what does that mean? And if it means you're the starter, how much of a Stanley Cup threat are you really if you don't have a goalie?
Well, that's a good question. There aren't a ton of them out there. I mean, typically, again, even like Colorado, although he shouldn't be a Vezina finalist, Grubauer has stabilized that, and that's part of why they're where they are. That's not the main thing, but it's important. There aren't too many teams that really make runs that don't have at least one. I mean, the Pittsburgh had the thing with Murray and Fleury. I mean, shoot, I'll go back to the Red Wings. Osgood was kind of a pretty good young goalie, but they went with Mike Vernon, who was a pretty decent older goalie, and it was fine. But they were also ridiculously loaded. So, it's hard to find the perfect situation where you might start and you aren't a cup contender. But I think the cup contender is what matters. And look, it seems like Pekka Rinne has been a pretty good mentor to Saros. Right? Does he get any credit for what Saros has turned into?
I think so.
So I could see the attraction for a team like Washington, which is closer to me, despite their flame out in the first round, has a better roster than Nashville does. And there could still be appeal and still some real opportunity. But I still think the cup closeness would be a bigger lure to him than you really have a good chance to start. I mean, you got to be realistic if you're him too.
You want to go start for the Buffalo Sabres?
Well, there you go. All the pucks you want to stop.
Have fun in Buffalo. You'll see a lot of pucks.
You want some Buffalo pucks in your grill, Pekka, and you want to play every night? Here, come on to Buffalo, baby.
You can see a lot out there, man.
Nothing will drive a person to retirement quicker than that.
Quicker than Buffalo.
That's right.
Sorry, Pete. If you're listening.
Sorry, Pete.
When we come back, we'll continue the discussion on the Predators and Pekka Rinne. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Also, some interesting comments yesterday from Ryan Johansson and Matt Duchene as well. We'll get to those coming up next. Right now, though, I've got to tell you about my friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA playoffs are here, and you'll be in hoops heaven betting on all the action on FanDuel Sportsbook because there are so many exciting matchups. FanDuel is taking that excitement to another level because new and existing users can bet risk-free throughout the playoffs. New users can get up to $1,000 back if your first bet doesn't win. Plus, once you have an account, you can bet one same-game parlay risk-free every single week. That means you can combine multiple bets for an even bigger win. The money line, the point spread, assists, three-pointer steals, everything is on the table. And if you don't win, you'll get up to $10 back. Basketball fans, now is the perfect time to give FanDuel a shot. Just make sure you sign up with promo code ROB to bet the NBA playoffs risk-free, exclusively on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. You must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. Risk-free bet for first online real money wager only, and refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 14 days. Same game parlay refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. A max refund of $10. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Same game parlay available for multiple sports in all states on mobile web. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. 1025 The Game and the Nashville Predators will host a 615 Day celebration presented by Social Furniture at Fordyce Center, Bellevue, June the 15th, benefiting Boys and Girls Clubs of Middle Tennessee. This all-day event will feature fun for the whole family while paying tribute to Nashville's annual 615 Day, an occasion that pairs Music City's area code with the date of June 15th. For more details, visit thegamenashville.com. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Discussing the Nashville Predators, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Joe got a texter that says, is Pekka a borderline Hall of Famer? He wants to add to his wins and shutouts with another team as their main goalie. I think to answer the first question, Pekka is a borderline Hall of Famer. I would put him just on the other side of that at the moment as not a Hall of Famer, but I don't know that one more season's worth of wins and or shutouts really changes that much. I think a Stanley Cup might change that.
Yeah, like if the real, to me, driving reason he would come back comes to fruition, then I think you have a different discussion. But I would agree. I don't think he's like, oh man, I got to figure out a way to get in the Hall of Fame. Well, I'm playing another year.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he wants to win a Stanley Cup. Now that could change his. Of course, it would. It wouldn't. Not could. It would absolutely change his resume if he actually could get that done.
Billy on the text line says, if Pekka wants to stay and win a cup, it's going to be as a backup, so he might as well just try it with us and stay here. This coming from Billy in Columbia. Look, that very well could happen. Pekka says he's got plans to sit down with David Poile in a few weeks to discuss the future. I think it's still, if I had to rank it, I would think probably the most likely scenario is that he is back next year. And if he's not retired, if he is back next year, it would be with the Predators.
You think that's the most likely
I think
outcome?
it's the most likely outcome.
I don't know if I agree with that.
If he's back.
Okay, but let's just say, what is the most likely outcome, period, to you?
Well, I said heading into yesterday, I thought like 60% he retires.
Really?
I don't feel that way anymore after that press conference yesterday.
So what do you think is? What's the most likely outcome?
I still think it's that he's back.
That he's here?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know. You know, so they paid Saros 1.5 this year. They paid Pekka 5.
Yep.
Just flip-flop that next year?
Probably would, yeah.
I mean, I don't know that Saros is going to get up to 5. I don't know.
He might.
He might. I mean, I'm not saying he shouldn't. This is where, you know, player team stuff can get, you know, look, both sides have to fight. Like if you're David Poile, to say, I'm sorry, you weren't a Vezina finalist, UC.
Yeah. You're going to get 4.5 now.
If you were a Vezina finalist, we could talk 5.
Poile making calls to other GMs around the league. Please don't put
maybe that's what it is.
Makes a lot more sense now as to why he's excluded.
Yeah. We were looking for a reason yesterday. Maybe that was it.
Conspiracy.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Shane from Ashland City texting in saying the man is still a beast, and I think it's better than Saros still. But that was just time to get younger and really polish Saros, and I don't blame the staff for that. Pekka staying, he just doesn't want to talk about it that much. I don't know if I buy that Pekka right now is better than UC Saros.
No, I think Pekka would be the starting goaltender for the team he's on if he were better than the other guy who actually is the starting goaltender for the team that they both play for, the starting goaltender who, you know, was the best goalie in the entire league for the last 2 months.
Would have been a really bold strategy to not play the better goalie in a playoff round if you're John Hines. I'm not a hockey coach.
He threw some curveballs. I would say
that would have been the ultimate curveball.
Hey, there were people in the playoffs.
Look,
saying, why isn't Pekka in there?
I know. I'll say this. In the Arizona series last year on the back-to-back, you could have made a case for Pekka to get in there. I wouldn't have had a problem with that. Saros was good. He wasn't great in that series. You could have made that case.
Well, there were a lot of people making the case in general. It was pretty split, I think, media-wise going into that series. There were a lot of people saying, yeah, you still go with Pekka Rinne right now.
There was no case this time around.
No.
There was none. No case in this playoff.
I mean, Pekka Rinne to me still, like, I would like to, I mean, if you're the Preds, you absolutely would love to have him for another year. It takes one other headache away that you have to worry about. You know, you feel good about it. And any team out there should feel like he's a guy who can be like one of those guys, and we've seen it before, in the postseason who could come in a pinch and rise up and steal you a game or more. And that's great. That's an asset to have. But he's not a 55-game starter in this league anymore. I don't think.
No, I don't think so either. Frank on the text line says Peck on the Maple Leafs next year.
Sure.
Just load them up, baby.
Maybe
Joe Thornton back, Jason Spezza.
That's where the Hall of Fame is.
Oh, well, that is where the Hall of Fame is. I tell you what, if he won a cup with Toronto, if he was a starting goaltender, he'd be a shoe-in.
Nah, he'd get his own wing. He'd get his own wing.
They would rename Toronto after him.
They would.
He'd get more than just the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Rene Ronto?
It's pretty good. I like that.
Torinato? I don't know.
Jeez. Heidi on the text line. For him, he just needs to do what makes him happy. As far as the Preds, it doesn't matter what they do at this point. Either way, they have backups. Giving the younger guys experience is probably more valuable, as we learned this season. This is coming from Heidi and Dixon.
Yeah, but you still need 20, 25 starts from the other goalie. So if those are real shaky now, that hurts your bottom line. I mean, I think Pekka Rinne can still come in again if he's going to keep with his routine. At some point, he falls off the cliff, and we've seen him decline clearly. But I still feel like you feel good about winning some games with him as your starting goaltender next season. And it's just a lot of teams are forced into the bring on the young guy. Let's see what but that's not really – and I don't think that's what it would be. I don't think there's anyone obvious now that Connor Ingram has had his issues. I think that it would be picking up one of the journeyman vets.
And Askarov's not coming over next year.
No.
So it's not going to happen.
No.
So, and I've heard some people throw that out there too, of just a Askarov combo next year. He's not ready. It's not going to happen. So, pump the brakes on Askarov a little bit.
There's no Asaroskov next year.
No, there is not.
Stop me right now.
Oh, please stop. It is interesting though, because look, if everything's back to normal next year, you have an 82-game season, and Saros is healthy. Like, how many games are you going to start? 60? 65?
Probably.
He's going to start a lot.
I wouldn't want to go much beyond 60.
It's not how it used to be. Like back in 2011 and 2012, that season, Pekka played 73 games.
Wow.
It's ridiculous. 73 of the 82 games. Like, those days are gone.
It's like baseball before there was a pitch count. Guys were throwing like 140 pitches, complete games, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, those days are gone. But even, you get into Laviolette's time here, 64, 66, 61. You're right around that area. Like, I think that's where Saros would be. So you're talking about, your backup goaltender at that point. If he's playing 65 games, you need him for 17 games. That's what you're looking at.
And if Pekka Rinne is the backup, then I think it would be more like 60-20, 58-20. And if it's someone else, then it probably is pushing into the 65-plus range for Saros.
Probably so.
And
maybe he gets to 73.
And that's another reason, if you're David Paul, I think you're very motivated to have Pekka Rinne come back. You feel good about it, and maybe the wear and tear on your guy is less when you go into what you hope is the postseason.
When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on the Predators. Preds radio analyst Hal Gill will join us. We'll do that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. And it's that time of the week. We go to our 102.5 The Game phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com and welcome in Predators radio analyst Hal Gill, brought to you by Duncan, featuring their new location in Belmead, and TriStar Moving, TriStar Movers with 5-star service. And as you just heard leading into this segment, you can catch Hal Gill tonight alongside Darren McFarland and the great Pete Weber as well for the offseason show, the season recap show for the Predators tonight at 6 o'clock on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Hal, what's going on, brother? How we doing?
I'm doing great, guys. Trying to pick up the pieces of a fallen season.
Yes, absolutely. It's a quick
Poetic.
turnaround to try to do that as we look ahead to discussions now leading into the offseason, and how some players talking yesterday, including Pekka Rinne, and has not made a decision yet on his future, kind of leaving every option on the table yesterday. What do you think of that and the decision that Pekka has left ahead of him, and how much game do you still think he has at this level, be 39 years old in November of next year?
Yeah, you know what? It's one of those funny things where he's not going to get away from the fact that he's older, and everyone's going to call him old. I don't know. You tell me. I mean, when I look at him, he looks dialed in. Like when he's played, he's been awesome. I mean, I haven't seen a drop in his play at all. So I just think he's got a lot more hockey in him if he wants it. The hard part is what is his drive? How much does he want to play, and is he in a position where he's not the top dog? I mean, he's been the top dog for a long time, and now he's sitting back watching juice. Does he want to continue to do that? That's a hard thing to go through, and he did a great job of it this year. When the Preds needed him, he was awesome. But how long does he want to do that? That's the question for me.
So Hal, I mean, we're all just sitting here speculating on what exactly he's thinking, what he's going to do. But I guess I kind of look at it like, if he's going to play another year or two in this league, does the top priority become where can I go? Maybe to have a similar role, maybe a little bit more role, but where I can go and really have a shot to win a cup. I guess, do you look at it the same way? And anyone come to mind on that front? We've thrown out a few possibilities. Washington, Pittsburgh. Obviously Edmonton has goaltending issues. I mean, do you think that's ultimately more the driver, or more the having a bigger role as the top factor?
Yeah, no. It's here's the thing is, and I went through this. I went through where you get old and people say, well, he's too old, and that's the bottom line is. So I don't know if a team is going to put him in a huge role and expect big things from him. I think more likely than not, he's going to have options that are going to be similar to what it would be here. Maybe splitting time, but most likely being a backup. And I'm not sure how much greener the grass gets if that's what he's looking at. Now Finland is a different story. You go back to Finland, he's the top dog. He's the big gun, and they'd love to have him there. So that's always an option.
Hal, as you look at this team now, we're going to hear from John Hines and David Poyle today about some of the decisions they've got coming up, including the expansion draft. But it seems like when we're having these conversations, a lot of times it goes back to the two highest paid forwards on the team, and that is Ryan Johansson and Matt Duchene. And they both had some interesting comments yesterday about kind of how they view the team and their situations heading into next season. But if the production, just purely the point production, if it doesn't get better than it's been the last couple of years in the regular season, how difficult does it make it for this group to truly contend for a Stanley Cup if you're not getting more out of those two specifically?
Yeah, it's tough for me because I appreciate the hard workers. I appreciate the grinders. But you need the big guys to put up numbers, and that's the bottom line. You need someone to get you points, and that's how you win games in the regular season. And And then if you can elevate your game in the playoffs, that's how you win in the playoffs. You look at just watching Colorado last night. Nathan McKinnon is a game changer every time he touches the puck. Now, I'm not saying everyone has to be Nathan McKinnon, but it changes the game. It puts teams on their heels, and it's what you need to win in the playoffs. And at the same time, I look over and you see Matthews and Marner in Toronto, and they didn't get it done. They only had 1 point between the two of them, or that's not good enough. And look where they are. So I think it's a hard balance between getting this grinding team that Hines really found through adversity and through a lot of injuries. He found a grinding mentality, and they really kind of came together as a team. But you need those guys to score goals, and that's the bottom line. So there's got to be a balance, but you do need someone, and if it's not Duchesne and Johansson, then where is it going to come from? Because that's a lot of money for not getting big points.
And then with the decor, Hal, obviously, I think Alex Carey, I know for me, I was thoroughly and consistently impressed, but also, surprised based on sort of his trajectory going into this season. But I feel like maybe that changes things too, or could change things, and how David Poile looks at it moving forward. What did you see from Carrier, and what do you think about where that leads for him, and also about Dante Fabro's future?
Yeah, that's I think it's exciting when you have the injuries like they had to Yossi and Ellis. You bring in Carrier, and you never expect him to be what he ended up being. You're right. I was impressed with him. Every shift, games got tighter and harder, and he somehow rose up. So do you just out of that performance, do you change everything? Do you change how you look at Fabro? Fabro going through an injury and coming back wasn't quite the same player. So, I think Fabro is a great player. He's going to have a bright future. So now you have to do you look at the downturn of Fabro and reevaluate and leave that behind because Carrier looks so good? Or do you, I think you have to take time and reset and find out where you're going and what you want to be. It's also a cap casualties. You have Yossi, Ellis, and Ekholm. You want Ekholm in your lineup. Something's got to give. There's a lot of money on the back end that's being sprinkled around. So how does that play into the rest of your defensive squad? That's something that they have to consider as well.
Preds radio analyst Hal Gill on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Hal, last thing for you here. As you look at some of the decisions coming up for David Poile this offseason, the expansion draft part of it, Saros a new contract, you can give an extension to Forsberg and Ekholm as well. As you just factor in the way the Predators ended the season, the playoff run against Carolina, all these things, how tough is it for David Poile, in your opinion, to try to determine exactly where this team is and exactly how close you are to truly being a competitor and a contender for the Cup? Like, how difficult of a job is that, do you think it is, for a GM in an offseason like this?
Well, it's hard because there's such a fine line between a contender and a team that doesn't make the playoffs. You have all this excitement because you got all the right pieces, and sometimes it doesn't work out. I'd be really excited because you have that mentality to be able to grind out wins when you need them, and they did that at the end of the season. But I think there needs to be some tinkering. I don't think this is a situation where you sit tight like they did a few years ago and say, okay, we got the right team, we just have to find the way to win. And I don't think that's a situation that they're in. I think they need to make some moves with the expansion draft coming in. I think there's going to be a lot of backdoor side deals. There's going to be a lot of movement that isn't just as simple as like, we lost a guy. I think there's going to be more movement and trying to be creative. I think David Poile and really Brian Poile with the manipulating the cap and trying to figure out how to make everything work so that they can get the right pieces. But I think there's going to be a lot more movement than I think the silence right now and the kind of quiet work is because there's going to be a lot going on behind the scenes. And I'm anxious to see how it goes. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done individually as well. You look at guys, Arvidsson didn't play up to his potential. Forsberg, I don't think, played up to his potential. You have guys like Granlund, Yarncroke, Cunnin that played like horses and did everything they could. Are they going to be able to push the team over the top without that high-end skill playing the way that they should? So, it's a trickle-down effect, and I think it's all going to get sorted out, but it is a lot of work to get there.
Preds radio analyst Hal Gill has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. You can check him out tonight as well at 6 o'clock here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, the season recap show for the Predators alongside Darren McFarland and Pete Weber as well. Hal, great stuff as always, man. Appreciate you taking time to join us.
But thanks for having me, guys. Cheers.
Absolutely. Hal Gill joins us every week, brought to you by Duncan, featuring their new location in Belmead, and TriStar Movers with 5-star service. When we come back, we'll wrap up the show, give our final thoughts on the Predators as well, taking your thoughts on our text line, 615-737-1025. That's coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Go to theGameNashville.com to check out Nashville's best deals. This week, purchase a $30 Boom Boss Crap Pizza and Tap House gift card for only $15. Try their award-winning pizza, 20-plus local beers, and drafts at all locations. It's the place to go to bring the family or come for pizza, beer, and sports. 4 Middle Tennessee locations in Bellevue, Murfreesboro, Spring Hill, and in East Nashville, which has a gigantic video wall. It's awesome. I saw it last Friday. Get yours now at theGameNashville.com. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, ESPN 102.5 The Game. Joe, we've had a lot of discussions today about haunted houses now that we know that Elijah Campbell is in one.
Yeah, well, on my personal text line, Kyle Tucker from The Athletic, friend of the show, says he has a similar ghost story to you, Elijah. This is living in Blacksburg, Virginia. He was on the Virginia Tech beat for many years.
Oh, wow.
Go Hokies. My roommate left, and then I heard someone running up and down the hallway upstairs. I was alone in the house. There's a ghost emoji here with this text, too.
Nice.
It was like a 100-year-old house with a super creepy basement. The attic got completely infested with bats, and several escaped into the house one weekend and were flying all over.
Jeez.
I mean, if you weren't sure if you were in a
pretty terrifying.
yeah, if you weren't sure you were in a haunted house, like then with the bats start flying around your head, how could you even have any
get
doubts?
out, man.
Yeah, you just get
I think the bats,
out.
that's the straw right there.
Yeah?
Yeah. If I start seeing bats or whatever, then I'm moving out quicker than expected. But
So is this frequent activity at your house?
the Xbox, definitely.
Okay.
Like there are some times that I've been downstairs and it sounded like I hear something upstairs, but I don't know if it's just me tripping out. And it's like in my head now.
Yeah.
But that text definitely creeped me out that one morning because he said,
I would say so.
and when I got back, he said it sounded like I was going up and down the stairs like I forgot something. So he's like in the kitchen making breakfast and he hears like steps going up and down and like lights flickering. So he just thinks I'm getting ready for work until he went outside and my car's gone. And there's no one else upstairs.
That's not good.
Yeah. So it freaked him out. It freaked me out a little bit too. But my Xbox, definitely, I'll be sleeping and I'll just hear doo-doo-doo. You know that little sound the Xbox One makes when you turn it on. And that'll like wake me up in the middle of the night. And it used to freak me out at first, but now it annoys me. I just end up going back to sleep. But I don't
if the worst thing the ghost wants to do is play your Xbox, then probably good.
It's yet to figure out how to actually play anything, but it knows how to turn it on.
Okay.
So
Interesting. So, and it's not like you could just unplug it, right? Because doesn't that mess it up? This is what my kids tell me about their
I think that
precious
may be
PS4.
something they've told you.
There's no truth to that?
If it's off and you unplug it, it's not going to mess it up. If it's on and you unplug it, yes.
it might be some problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
But if
that's
the
not-
thing's already off and you unplug it, no damage will be done.
Yeah, see,
Don't let them corrupt you.
I'm so gullible. This comes
It's
back.
like, oh, just leave it in.
Like our dad's old. He'll never know. Yeah, he won't know.
This comes back around to bad parenting, from the fear of a haunted house to the fear of being a bad parent. Fear is realized.
The scariest last segment of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's better than the first segment of this show. We've had a heck of a show.
Which is also scary.
My shorts are dry now, by the way.
That's good. That's some water.
So anybody
spillage.
who just heard that and didn't hear the beginning is like, what?
Yeah, it was a crazy start to the beginning of this show, and then the lights went out. I guess somebody ran into an electrical pole again. It's been a heck of a day here on Robby and Rexrode. A lot of fun. Elijah's enjoyed every second of it.
Man, my shirt's just dried off from all the sweat of me freaking out of every light in this building going off, and it's going off air for a little bit.
Yes.
So I'm still recovering from that one.
Absolutely.
Let's see if that laptop's dried out here in a minute.
We'll see what happens on that
Put in a
front.
big bag of rice.
I may be purchasing Joe Rexrode a new laptop coming up very soon.
Well, look, if you get 3 hits tonight, I absolve you of all responsibility.
Okay, well that's some pressure on me.
Celebrity softball.
Doing a little celebrity softball action tonight. The Rock and Jock Celebrity Softball benefiting the Folds of Honor of Tennessee, which is a great cause out there tonight. Taylor Lewan will be there. A.J. Brown will be there. Terry Bradshaw will be there as well.
That's fun.
So
Terry Bradshaw.
Who is more fun to be on a team with? Should I be on a team with Lewan, A.J. Brown, or Terry Bradshaw?
Well, I think you want to be on the other team from Lewan and beat him and talk trash to him.
Probably so.
Okay. They start there. Yeah, Bradshaw, I mean, I guess he'd be – I don't know. I think I'd rather be on A.J. Brown's team, hear what kind of,
We
things
can come
he's
up with
got
a recruiting
cooking.
pitch to Julio together.
Exactly. You may catch him in the middle of an Insta video or a TikTok trying to get Julio to convince the Falcons to trade him to a particular place.
Absolutely.
It probably won't work, but still, I like it. It's fun.
You can buy tickets tonight. The event tonight taking place at First Horizon Park with the Nashville Sounds. Tickets you can find on firsthorizonpark.com or more information at tennessee.foldsofhonor.org/events as well. And as people in the text line have pointed out, Jared Stillman also playing in this game. I believe my responsibility is just to have a better stat line than Stillman, which, I mean, I guess I'm relatively confident about. I've never seen Stillman play any sport, so I have no clue what sort of an athlete he is.
I mean, he's got to be just awful at everything, right?
I don't know.
The thing is, like Chase comes out and he puts himself out there, and he's swinging the sledgehammer and like kind of half bunting it. Hey, I appreciate the courage. I never see Jared try anything. I've never seen Jared
pull-ups,
throw a ball. Oh, that's true. Jared can do some pull-ups. So I'm glad he's going to put himself that. Maybe we'll be pleasantly surprised.
Maybe so. Maybe Jared.
Wait, so is Chase involved in this or no?
I don't think so.
No. Okay. Well, that's too bad.
That really is too bad. Could put that on for a stadium full of people to see.
They saw the video of that and was like, how about no?
Chase, we
leave that one out.
need a scorekeeper.
Yes, we do. Get out there tonight, McCabe. We'll see what happens.
I'd be there for it.
My goal tonight, don't strike out, don't get injured. Those are my two goals every time I play softball. Most of the time I accomplish that. Not every time. Most of the time.
You struck out in softball?
No, injured.
Okay.
Very, very difficult to strike out in softball.
Yeah.
That thing's coming in there pretty slow.
So I have had swings and misses trying to crush the ball.
Oh, yeah.
Then you're like, you know what? I'm going to just go ahead and hit a line drive
on this
now.
next one.
Yeah.
That's right. That does it for us today on an eventful edition of Robby and Rexrode. We'll be back 6 a.m. tomorrow. Darren Donegan Chase is coming up next. This is ESPN 102.5 The Game.